All right, y'all. Last session of the day. I really appreciate all of you being here. So I want to get started sharing a little bit about myself and my experience. So I am Lydia Thompson. I own the private practice Concord Family Counseling down in Franklin. Now I started off thinking I was going to work with littles. And what kept showing up in my office? Teenagers. And I literally got to the point where I told my husband, I cannot take a single teenager more. They're driving me bonkers. Like, I don't know. They're so complicated. They're so hard. And something I think just turned around for me. And I started to really enjoy the challenge of working with teenagers. So now that is my specialty, is working with teens and their families. So I've been working with teenagers and their families for around 6 years. But as we're going to talk about today, there is a huge gap in our education and our training in order to work with this population. So some of the questions I'm hitting up against when I'm working with teenagers: what do I do when they call me their bestie? I'm not their bestie, I'm their therapist. When they spill the tea with me? What do I do when they have thought about hurting themselves and then I want to hurt myself? I don't know if you guys get that. Okay. When they show me the screenshot evidence, what do I do then? What if they tell me they have hidden apps on their phone that their parents don't know about? When they have told me, their parents have told me that they have big issues, but they have not told me that they have these big issues, and they downplay them. What then? So my biggest question is, if I can get to it, no, there it is. We're going to examine the current landscape of adolescent mental health. We're going to explore the developmental aspects that make this a specialized population, analyze the influence of technology on the mental well-being of teenagers and their families, and give you some suggestions on working with teens and their families. The things we're not going to be able to get into today are LGBTQ+ issues and their relationship with teenagers, the troubled teen industry, bullying online, and the intersection between adolescent population and specific diagnoses. What we're mostly going to be talking about is regular teenagers with their regular problems. Now, if anybody wants more information and wants me to speak at their specialized place, I'm happy to come and speak more on these, but we can't in this area. So, as a show of hands, how many of you work with adolescents? Great, I'm so glad you guys are here. How many of you took a graduate school class about working with adolescents? Amazing, great. And how many of you felt unprepared when you started working with adolescents? So, a lot of us have hit this oh no moment where we went, okay, how do I get more help in working with teenagers? So some stats about adolescent mental health. Globally, 1 in 7 10 to 19-year-olds experience a mental health disorder. Half of mental health disorders in adulthood start by age 14. Most are undetected and untreated. 28% of teens have received mental health treatment of some kind, or about 8 million teens. So they are showing up in our offices more and more. And 51% of US teenagers spend at least 4 hours daily on social media. Not that technology is all bad, we can definitely get into that. However, spending 4 hours on social media instead of 4 hours socializing face-to-face with friends, there's some missed opportunities there, and it does play on anxiety and depression and common pitfalls for adolescents. So to show you a chart, so compared to childhood, they are more at risk for suicide, they're more at risk for self-harm, they're more at risk for depression and substance use. What's going on for teenagers is huge social changes, huge mental restructuring of their brain, physical changes, and emotional changes. This makes this population different than children. All right, so some misconceptions I hear about counseling teens. Counseling teens is basically just counseling adults, right? It's the same interventions. It's just, adjusted a little bit. And on the flip side, the interventions for children will also work for teenagers, which, right, we're like, no way. It's just hormones. They'll just grow out of it. We've just got to buy our time, keep them safe, and they'll just figure it out. Like, no. Mental health issues stem from phone usage. It does not start there. It can be exacerbated by excessive phone usage, but it does not start with their phones. And taking away their phones is not the only answer. Technology is only bad for teen mental health. We'll get into some of the effects of technology on teen mental health, but we'll leave it at that. And teens are manipulative, and they're dramatic, and they should not be believed. I want to hear from people, if you work with kids and teens, what do you think are the differences in working with children and teens? What do you guys see?
Children can sense if you like them.
Children can sense if you like them.
When you deal with adolescents, it can be a hit or miss on any given day.
Yeah.
And even if they're in the same family, you're seeing both of them, different personalities.
Yeah. Or they don't talk to me in session, and then their mom is like, you're their favorite person. Like, what? Yeah, kids that kind of show up as they are, kind of know where they are at. Any other differences between kiddos and adolescents?
I'd say what they're looking for from the therapeutic relationship. With the kiddos, it's a lot more of the fun, interactive side of things, almost turning into a surrogate friend, but with the mental health side to it. And the teens, it's that, but it kind of takes on a more complex and mature version, I guess, would be the best way of putting it, where it's not as interactive at that point. It's much more talk therapy and much more, you're somebody who actually wants to listen to me and wants to hear what I have to say.
Yeah, often kids will just talk and share. It almost doesn't matter who it is. I mean, it takes time to build that, but yeah, teens tend to be a little bit more picky. Okay, any other differences?
Trust, earning their trust, to be able to open up, like you said.
Yeah.
Feels kind of work on anything, but over here, teens, they kind of pick and choose who's genuine, who's not, to be able to open up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I say that they have a BS detector, right? And
also way more open to, just because of brain development, and they're looking at you as a grown up, and you respect and listen to grown ups, and then they get to be teenagers, and they're like, you're just another dumb adult, you don't know anything. Yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely, right. So there's that trust that's maybe built more easily with children than there is with adolescents, who are probably coming in on the flip side going, I don't trust you, instead of I'm open to trusting you. Now we're generalizing to teenagers. Some do come in trusting automatically, but yeah.
I just like the way I approach them is different, and very professionally, but with kids, I'm more like, hey, how's your day going? And with the middle schoolers, I'm like, what's up? They're like, bro, I'm in here again. And I'm like, yeah, bro, you're in here again. It's just the way you build rapport with them. I think it can be very different, and that was a big adjustment for me, coming from adults,
right,
with adolescents, because it's just a different way of engaging. Sometimes, more the joking, the playing, of course with boundaries and appropriately, but just the way you build rapport is just so different from, okay, tell me about your day, and just expecting them to open up and spill the tea, because they won't. So.
Yeah, it's a lot more difficult to get to know them. How about for adults? What is the difference between working with adults and working with teens in your experience? You kind of started this train. How else do you see working with adults being different than working with teenagers?
They identify with their problem more sometimes.
Who?
The adult. The adult says, I feel like this is wrong with me, fix it. Whereas the teen is usually told to go to therapy. They're not. Sometimes they're the ones seeking the help, but a lot of the time they're being sent.
Yeah, they might have a little bit. Adults might have a little bit more buy-in. It's their money. they've identified the problem, they've shown up, versus, yeah, some teens are just said, here's your therapist. You suck to be around in the mornings. You need to talk to somebody. Yeah. Go on.
I see a lot more self-harm.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to adults.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot more self-harm. Yeah. Anything else?
Actually, the show rate, the no-show rate, let's
No
say,
show rate.
adults is actually worse than the teens are, I guess, because they got a parent that's bringing them.
Driving them, yeah. Yeah, definitely the no-show rate.
The teens get in, come in the office, want me to tell them how do I help them get from having to come to the office,
Mm.
where the adults are not, well, I'm here,
Mhm.
let's do something.
Their goal is like, how do I stop coming to you?
Right.
Yeah.
How do- you know,
How do I get out of this
how do I
torture?
convince my mom not to bring me to therapy.
I have some ideas, yeah. Yeah. How they show up in therapy, how they ask for help is going to be super different than adults, than kids. Then why aren't there trainings specializing in adolescents?
I don't think people really like working with adolescents.
Yes. I told somebody earlier, I was like, yeah, I'm speaking about counseling adolescents. They were like, oh, that's scary. I was like, I mean, yeah. When you don't know how to work with teenagers, it can be scary and can activate maybe, I don't know what to do with them. Am I providing evidence-based practice? What is evidence-based practice with a teenager? Right? Because I don't know about y'all, but when I am trying to do any therapy, right? If I say, hey, we're going to do CBT today, they're saying, I got another plan, you know? I don't really want to do that. Why do we have to do that? It's like sometimes they just want to talk. And how do I write a note on that? Right? How do I write a note on spilling the tea? Yeah. So clinicians can be scared because we do not have the education. So I actually looked back through my syllabi for my grad school experience, and I found that the only class that addressed adolescent development was my lifespan class. We talked about physical development. We talked about puberty, sexuality, relationship development, theories about adolescent cognitive and social emotional development, and intellectual development. Okay? This textbook was from 2016. I have looked back through it afterwards, and I think that I could basically just throw it out the window. Because when we're looking at teenagers in the digital age, we don't know how to treat it somewhat. And so we need more education, we need more trainings. And I even went so far, all right? I went to the PESI website and I searched for anything that didn't say child and adolescent. Nothing. Kids, I was searching adolescents, right? Nothing. Okay, child and teen. I mean, this is gonna get old, but like, there's nothing there. Now, I know this is just a small sample here, but this, you know, I'm like, okay, what else could I search? Like, teenagers, nothing. What about teen, I think development is what I put next? No, just teens. Okay, nothing. Children and teens, kids, teens, parents, children and teens. I mean, this is like,
It's a big chunk of it's a big chunk of your life. Like, think about even our own.
It is a huge chunk of our life, and it is essential for who we become as adults. I highlight, okay, traumatized tweens and teens. Okay, we got one. Okay, parents of teenagers. I'm like, where's the help here? Come on, guys, we have to get something here. Nothing.
Well, even the top one said teens and adults.
Teens and adults, exactly. They're either grouped with kids, which we know y'all work with teens. It is not the same. Or they're grouped with adults, and it is not the same. And so where is the education and training for working with adolescents? And I believe this is why so many clinicians are terrified to work with teenagers. I mean, seriously, it just keeps going, guys. I mean, all right. So that was my own personal search here.
Can I just add in, it's even like coming from the student perspective, it's even scarier for somebody who wants to work with teens, but it's like, where is the support in that?
How do you work with teens? Yeah, I am with you. So let's talk about development. Okay, so there are 2 major stages of brain growth. The first is 0 to 5, and we kind of know about that. We're not going to play the video today because I want to make sure I leave some time for questions at the end. They are gathering information, 0 to 5, gathering, world building. And when they reach adolescence, which is the second and final major brain growth spurt in a person's entire life, they're pruning. They're specializing their brain. They're getting rid of the things they didn't need. So my belief is that if we can intervene and provide treatment for teens when they are open and flexible in their brains, we can actually change more effectively adults' lives and change the trajectory of someone's life. I'm so passionate about working with teens. So I'm like, get them in, even if they are quote unquote normal. So we talk about identity development. They are emphasizing relationships outside of their family. So when they're coming into my office, it's different than they're talking to their parents. So I can say something to a teen and their parent can say, I've said that so many times, but they're listening to me. They're listening to me. They also are presenting themselves online and in person. So they have different versions of themselves that they're trying on different identities. Pushback is normal. Challenging authority is normal. And challenging the status quo is normal. So when they're pushing back in session, normal. Decision making. Teens' brains are more sensitive to dopamine releases. So if we think about every like, every comment, every big game, getting the girl to text you back, they are so sensitive to these dopamine releases that it actually leads to more impulsiveness. And so I am seeing more teens making really bad decisions, especially late at night with their phones, contacting people. And they're not really thinking rationally. Sometimes I'll have parents bring in their teen to say, hey, they're not thinking clearly. If they saw it how I saw it with my adult brain and my experience, they would understand. So as you guys know, what they're showing up is they do kind of seem dramatic. They seem over emotional. They're not always thinking rationally. And we can actually help them think through decisions. The last would be that pruning and shaping. So attention shapes brain growth. So if they're showing up in our office every week, we can actually guide their brains in thinking about other people's feelings, empathy, other options, critical decision making. So we can really help shape their brain growth at this stage of their life. All right, so the impact of technology is not lost on us. They are almost always connected. Now, some of that is really good. I have teenagers who in the middle of the night, they will text their friends about wanting to harm themselves, and their friends are able to be there for them in a way that they don't feel safe telling their parents. This is so great. But being always connected and always on sometimes leads to hyperarousal. Community and validation. This is another thing that they're looking online and saying, hey, I have recognized that I might have ADHD. I watched TikToks on it, and I have now found somebody who I really connect with online. This also goes for LGBTQ youth. They're finding their communities online when it's not there in person. Information overload. They know so much and yet so little. There's too much information to sort through, and so sometimes the role that I'm playing in the room is this true about sex? I'm like, let's talk about it then. Is this true about social media? Is this true about anxiety? And coming to me with this wealth of information and helping them sort through what is true, what is not true, and how this applies to them. Disruption of sleep. I see this pretty consistently. Your teenagers are on summer break. Yeah, so what do their schedules look like? It's like, are they even sleeping? No, they are. Naps throughout the day. Yeah, so this is disrupting sleep when there aren't boundaries around social media. Inappropriate content is easily accessible. Porn addiction is right at their fingertips. They can delete the history. Nobody will ever know. Parents can be looking. They can have content filters up. Kids will always find a way around whatever filter you put on their phone. That's just the truth. Comparison. There is a constant comparison to other teenagers and adults and things that are not even accurate representations of what a human body even looks like. It's edited. And yet I'm seeing teens come in over and over again with body image issues and eating disorder behaviors due to their comparison that they're having on social media and the pressures they have to post really cute pictures of themselves on social media that look gorgeous of themselves. Poor impulse control, critical decision-making skills is so important because of the access to unsafe behaviors. And so how do we help teens sort through how they present themselves, not just in person, but also online? All right, so what counseling adolescents really does look like. They may not want to change anything. Even if they've hit something in their life where they had a consequence, in my opinion, they have not experienced enough failure to know that their coping mechanisms don't work. I'm like, hey, you're using this avoidance over and over again. I'm seeing it's not working. She's like, it works well enough. What would be harder would be to actually address the situation. And so I would rather just keep on avoiding it. It's working out for me. And so they might not want to change. And actually, I understand that. They've not hit that point of failure yet. Self-diagnosis through the power of social media and the internet. They have so much information at their hands, and so they might give themselves a diagnosis, and I usually pull out my DSM and I say, all right, let's actually look at it. Let's look at what actually this looks like. This isn't, I wash my hands twice and so I have OCD. I'm like, okay. Yeah, that's not, okay, that's not OCD. They're also carrying adult level problems with their teenage brain. Now more than ever, they have access to adult level information and carrying adult level problems. I'm sure y'all see it as well. Give me a nod. They're seeing, handling adult level problems and not going to an adult to help them solve it. They're going to their friends. Developmentally normal, not helpful. Testing behaviors. That might look like cursing. That might look like pushing boundaries, telling an inappropriate story, talking about drinking or using drugs, sharing a story about a friend. No, that was my friend who did that. I'm just waiting for you to call them on it, right? And I recognize that was a chance for me to either show up like an adult that she has in her life already, accepted that information was true, and she might have been, it seemed to me like she was doing it for shock value. And to see if I was going to tell her what to do, I was going to reject her, I was going to isolate her in any way or label her in any way. And I just said, oh, sounds like a good time. And technology is, and difficulty working with family system. How many of you have difficulty working with the family system of a teenager? It's one of the most difficult parts. Do you think working with teens is tough? Working with parents of teens? Worse. Yeah. Technology is often involved. You know, at first when I started working with teens, I was like, no phones in session, right? And I realized how dumb that was because they need to show me the receipts. They need to show me the picture. She posted this with my boyfriend. What do you think about this? Right? He texted me this and then deleted it on Snapchat. So, but I have the receipts and I need to show you. I also use technology in playing music. Show me a meme. Show me some music that you relate to. Show me where you got that information about that ADHD diagnosis that you've given yourself. Right? It was a BuzzFeed quiz. Okay, let's talk about, these are new opportunities to talk about and use those critical decision-making skills that we want them to strengthen. All right, so some recommendations for working with adolescents. Stay educated. I think sometimes, even in my work, I don't know something that a teenager says. Like, I'm never gonna be on top of all the lingo. I really am not. Yeah, right? So I'm curious in session, but I also do my own research. I do not want to be left behind when it comes to especially LGBTQ issues. I don't want to be behind. And so if they're using certain things and saying like they're ace, I'm like, I got to know what they are. I got to know and not say, well, I actually don't know. Can you tell me? But I will never keep up with all the information. So stay educated about the games, the shows. What are they listening to? What are they watching? Thinking about the show 13 Reasons Why that came out. Thank goodness I watched that show and was able to debrief some of that with some of my clients. It is a horrific show that was marketed to teenagers. So staying on top of that so that I can stay current, at least somewhat. I will not be able to stay as current as I need to be. I have never felt older than my entire life than working with teenagers. Be your weird self. As soon as you put up that block of I am the professional, you are the teenager, a lot of teenagers will just shut right down. So be weird, be authentic to whatever is true to you. And just like you were saying, it's like, I'm a pretty direct person. I use a lot of humor. So great, that's how I'm going to show up in session. And clients usually respond to that. Give them respect. Before they earn it from you, give it to them. Believe them. When they say, my parents yelled at me, believe them. You know, there's always going to be a part of me that says, you know, your mom loves you, you know, and maybe it wasn't that bad. But in session, it is their perception that matters above everything else. So I'm just going to believe them. Even if it is dramatic, even if it is over-emotional, even if it is irrational, I'm just going to believe them. Don't be too serious. That's just my own opinion. I think that working with teenagers sometimes is about being playful, as well as getting into the seriousness of the issues. Connect to teen angst and rebellion. Get in touch with what it felt like to have your teachers and your parents not understand you. And I would even say use that rebellion, right? Your teachers are telling you have to have it figured out. Do you? Let's question that status quo here. You know, even your parents want this and this for you. Is that what you want? Is that what you want? No, you don't. Okay, great. Then you can get in touch with the angst. I usually actually start, if teenagers are super shut down, I usually start with anger and frustration. How do people just not understand what you're going through, misunderstand you, especially their parents? Look for and pass those tests that they're going to give you when they're cursing and they're giving you these stories. Just be chill. Be chill about it. Right? You can ask questions, but pass the test. Don't be like every adult that says, don't do that, please. Everything in me says, like, please don't. Please don't do that. But we gotta be chill. We gotta be chill in session. Protect the trust you earn. Some of this goes with working with parents. When parents are saying, hey, what are they talking about in session? I'm gonna protect that trust no matter what. And even when a parent comes in for that parent intake, I'm gonna say to the parent, hey, no disrespect here. I'm gonna set what you say to the side. And anything that you tell me here, I might bring up to your kid and I might ask them about it. I'm not gonna keep secrets from them. They might experiment. I have a lot of clients that say, hey, I've thought that I might be non-binary. Can you use they, them pronouns? I'm not safe to be out somewhere else, but can you just practice in here? So we might try some things on. Does this feel okay? We might practice different ways of being. And as you guys know, being a teenager is about shifting the way that you're being very quickly. They can change very quickly. And I always say to assess for technology use on the forefront and continuing. Oh man, Lydia, I'm so tired today. Oh, how late did you stay up? Oh, I was up till like 3. What were you doing? Oh, well, me and my friends on this group text and da-da-da-da. And so I'm assessing, are they safe? And do I need to have a conversation with their parents to say, hey, they're not using their technology well, and so it might be for their best interest to take technology at 10. I don't want to be mean, but yeah. For working with parents, value the views and opinions of their teenager. I would say working with teenagers almost above their parents. Defend them. Give space to them in session. Teach and practice modeling. That's how we're going to get anywhere with teenagers. And so for parents, their teenagers have turned their voices off. They can say something a million times, but teens are watching. Restriction usually isn't the solution. I see many parents say, I don't want them to do this. I'll take away everything. It's like relationship really works well with teenagers because they're just going to find a way to do it anyway. Educate about the normal teen behaviors, like developmentally. This is normal for them to hate you and not like you and not listen to you. Let teens make mistakes. They've got to learn somehow. Pushing away and calling towards. For many teenagers, they are pushing their parents away and pushing maybe even me away. And underneath that is a calling towards. And I have a client in mind who we talk a lot about hating her father, who's not a great person, but she'll break down in session and go, but he doesn't text me anymore. He doesn't follow up with me anymore. And even though she says, I hate you, I never want to talk to you again, can you believe he doesn't try to talk to me anymore? And so talking to parents about this, and this is not going to go away, they are always calling towards. And building partnership with parents. You want them to feel like their teen is in a good place with you and that they can take a step back so that you can take a step forward, especially in watching for any safety concerns. You want parents to be able to trust that you're doing good work with their teenager. So for future steps, we need more education. We need more training for counselors working with adolescents in the digital age. Adolescents are a specialized population. They are not children. They are not adults. And what works with other populations shouldn't automatically be applied to counseling adolescents. And you can find me if you have any questions. Lydia at ConcordFamilyCounseling.com. My practice is Concord Family Counseling, and I also started a podcast this year. So I say that we're in the middle of TED Talks and TikTok, somewhere in the middle of there. So it's called Counselor Off the Clock. We do have a few more minutes. I don't know how many. I would love to open it up for any questions or any thoughts. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, that's how they are showing up. Like, they get the text reminders because they're driving themselves. However, if the teenager is saying to me, my mom is driving me crazy, she's doing this and this, I'm going to say, hey, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to talk to her in session? Do you want me to call her and ask some questions? I try to respect teenagers as much as possible, not going behind their back, even if they're 15. Yeah. I think it could be. I mean, to get my genuine response to that, sometimes when I bring my own thing, I'm like, this is cool. Taylor Swift is cool. And looking at her lyrics is cool. Sometimes teens are like a little weird. It's like, you know, yes, I like Taylor Swift, but I don't want to talk about that in session, you know? But it could be really connecting to some teens who are huge Taylor Swift fans to go, all right, let's talk about sadness. All right, let's talk about it through these songs. Let's listen. What are you thinking about? That would be a more directive approach. And I think some clients might resist that, and some clients might be all in on that. Especially in a group setting, because what you would get is Swifties signing up.
Right. The entire, like.
Yeah.
Sometimes what we think the song means has nothing to do with those kids and what they're hearing.
True.
I was gonna say, at least they meet where they are.
What
Yeah.
songs
What it is to them,
bring this
not
to
what
you?
it is to
Like, you pick the song that
Right.
makes you feel this way,
Yeah.
or what artist makes you feel this way, because it's so,
Mhm.
yeah, because you can come in exactly and have a plan, and they're like, I feel nothing. And you're like,
Yeah.
Client directed.
Yeah.
Yeah, giving them autonomy, like we can dig through any artist
Yeah.
and talk through any amount of songs. Now, some might be drawn to Taylor Swift, or, you know, I think therapists could throw that as an option. Like, hey, like, I'd love to use this. Would Taylor Swift be a good option for you? Oh, yes, I love that. Or teen girls are experiencing tic disorders that don't have or they're experiencing tics and don't have tic disorders. You know, have you seen that too? No. Oh, yeah. It's because what's coming up on their For You pages are videos of people having tics. And so they're super susceptible to picking up on things like tulpas and multiple personalities, tics, OCD, and they will start performing them as if they actually had them. This is a normal thing that teens go through. I mean, think about how many of us, maybe, not me, but how many of us normally went through like a goth phase or like a metal phase? Okay, I don't see any like metal people in here, like goth people in here. Like, there is somewhat of a normal trying things on. Do I actually have this? Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to a collaborative treatment plan. Does it fit with our treatment plan to talk about these friends? If it does, great. But if it doesn't go towards our treatment goals, yeah, I'll spend some time like talking about this other friend, but I usually just bring it back to them. Like, how did you feel when you heard that? Like, what did that make you think of? Is this related to something else? Are you anxious about how much drama is going on? I think I just usually bring it back to them and their experience. Well, teens are naturally self-centered. And so it's almost too easy to get them to talk about their reaction to whatever is going on. They want to talk about themselves for the most part. There's so much fear in, okay, if they explore something, that is going to lead them down some path, and that means something. And I understand there is a lot of very valid fears for parents of teenagers. There's very valid safety concerns. And there's a lot of things that's like, it's okay. And then you have to re-engage, and then re-engage and re-engage. Yep. To say, hey, it's okay. We got it. It's going to be fine.
We're still safe.
We're safe. It's okay. My email's on the board. I'll be hanging around for the next few minutes as well. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Lydia.
Yeah, thank you.